Hi everybody, welcome to Level 5 Health and Social Care, Unit 505, the research project. And welcome to week 2, where we're going to talk about writing a literature review. Some of you may have done this in previous study. All pieces of academic research will need to have a literature review as part of their write-up and document, okay? And we're just going to talk through what is required to include a literature review. Okay, so this is meeting criteria 1.4 to critically review appropriate literature. So it's something you absolutely have to do as part of your completed research document, as I said. So what is a literature review? It's a survey of scholarly sources on a specific topic. It gives us an overview of the current knowledge that's been around, and it allows you to identify any relevant theories, methods that have been used, gaps in the existing research that you might want to apply to your paper later. A good literature review doesn't just summarise the sources, and I know that in level 4 you practice sort of summarising sources of literature, but it also analyses and synthesises and evaluates to give a clear picture. So you're sort of moving up a step here, really. Okay, you're not just doing a summary, but you're actually saying whether that's good or not, or whether that answers the question or not. So when you write your thesis or your research paper, you will have to conduct a literature review, as I've said. It gives you a chance to demonstrate how well you know your topic, how well you've read up on it. It gives you a theoretical framework for the methodology for your research. So it explains why you've chosen what you've chosen. Positions your work in relation to other researchers. Is it different? Are you confirming what they've done? Are you proving them wrong? Are you saying that there's another way to look at it? Show how your research addresses gaps or just contributes to the debate. So you could actually be confirming that that is acceptable, and people do it all the time. Maybe not always the most creative, but it's still done. And you can also evaluate the current state of that piece of research to date, and as I said, demonstrate your knowledge about the important debates in that topic. So it will give me lots to when I'm marking to see what your knowledge, your previous knowledge is, and how well you understand the debate. Your literature review will really give me a good idea for your knowledge and understanding mark, how well you understand what you're researching. Okay, so let's think about step 1. Before you begin searching for literature, you need a clearly defined topic. Now, in week 1, we looked at developing your research question. So you should have your research question to hand, really. And if you're writing the literature review section, you need to search for literature that relates specifically to that problem, and generally not stuff that doesn't. So you have to be quite disciplined with yourself, because some of you may pick topics that could be incredibly wide anyway. So really make sure that the literature you're going to review in this document is really clearly related to your question and not just vaguely related to your question. So make a list of keywords related to your research question and add this to the key concepts that you're in, okay? So just jot a few ideas down first. So here we might be looking at a question about young people, teenagers and body image, really, or social media's approach to body image for teenagers. So, I've jotted down some keywords here that I will use for my literature searches. Okay. Social media, Facebook, body image, self-perception, Generation Z, teenagers, that sort of thing. That just helps you get your sort of head together as a how am I going to Google it? What am I going to find? You know, how am I going to library search? So using those keywords, you can search for relevant sources. If you've got a college library to hand, then obviously you can use that catalogue by using your keywords. You can use something called Google Scholar, which instead of just a very wide general Google Scholar really only looks at academic text, so it can be quite helpful for you. And to find Google Scholar, you just Google Scholar, and that will take you to the right site. There's also something called Project Muse, which deals with a lot of humanities and social sciences. So depending on what your question is, you know, it might come under social sciences. It might be a society one. If you're doing something, say, like on obesity in, I don't know, middle-aged women, then Project Muse might be quite helpful because it's social sciences. There's also Medline, which is much more medicine and biomedicine. Okay, so it might be something if you're going to do something that's disease related, that might be quite a useful one. So I've thrown in a few ideas. You can find ideas of your own as well. Okay, and when you're actually looking at these documents, you'll find that most of them are sort of long research documents. Instead of trawling all the way through them, all good research documents will have a little abstract at the beginning, which is basically a summary of what it's all about. So read the abstract first and, you know, think about it. Is this going to answer my question? And if you can't pick it up from the abstract, then you know, if you can't say from the abstract that that is actually going to address my question, then you don't need to trawl through the other 30 pages of the piece of research. If it's not in the abstract, then it's not good enough for what you need. Okay. Also, when you do find a good article or a book, they will have their references below at the end in the same way that you do when you write your assignments. So you can, you know, have a look at the references that they've put in and think, oh, hello, that could be quite interesting. Or, you know, if you've read the article and it talks about something you particularly want to talk about, then use their reference and go and find the other article that they were talking about. That will give you more information as well. So look at their bibliographies. Step 2 is evaluating and selecting the resources. So really, I just need to reinforce with you, you won't have time to read everything that's been written on your topic. So you've got to look at a few of them and just do a quick evaluation. And that's what I say about using the abstract very often. That can help you just evaluate how useful it is. So for each thing you're looking at, what is the question? Is the question similar to yours? Is it like yours? Does it pick up enough of your question to be for you to bother reading the rest of it? What are the key concepts? Just jot those down, maybe roughly. How are they defined? Are they the definition? Are they what you're looking for? Does it use established frameworks, or does it take a very innovative, unusual approach? Or is it positivist? Is it interpretivist? That's okay. Just you can sort of clock that up in your head as well. You can flick to the results and conclusions stage then. You know, if you've got from the abstract, you thought, yeah, these 3 articles are going to be really helpful, then pop to their results and conclusion. What's it telling you? Is it giving you the sort of answers that you're thinking? Does it confirm maybe the ideas you might have, or does it challenge what you sort of maybe expected might come out? When you're looking at the piece of research itself, you know, have a look. Just because they're all, you know, researchers doesn't mean to say they always do it perfectly. What are the strengths and weaknesses? Are there things that they could have done more of? Are there areas they didn't go to? You know, did they only work at one age range? Could you think, well, maybe if they did a wider age range, they might have found different answers or something? So have a look at that. Make sure the sources you use are credible. It's really important now. And I keep saying, I cannot say it enough, don't use Wikipedia. I know it's easy. And quite a lot of the information is good, but it is not credible because it's never assessed and it's never verified. So, it's a bit like people say that there's a lot of dodgy information on the internet. Well, there is. So don't just take everything you read on the internet or even Wikipedia as for real, okay? In this case, because it is a proper research project, you should only use good academic texts, stuff from universities, stuff that have got good publishing. You can use government documents because they're all supposed to have been peer reviewed and that, although some might say they might have a political bent to it, but as long as you make a note of that and say, and make sure you need to find out what the landmark studies are, and you will find that. So if I'm saying if you're talking about obesity in middle age, literally Google landmark studies on obesity, 40 to 60-year-olds or something like that, and just make sure that you found the ones that everybody's already read. Okay. As you go along, you should take notes, really, because so often people, go for a bibliography. They think, oh, that's a useful reference. Write those down. Start writing down those references and citations. Okay. It's much easier to do it as you go along when you think, yes, I'm going to use that, and then take it out. If you try to go back and find it, later on, if you think, oh yeah, where was that thing that I was writing about obesity and lack of exercise? Oh yeah, okay. Oh, which document was it? Get your references down, so if you want to write more about it, you can flip straight back to it. Okay, really, really important. Helps you remember what you read, and it saves a huge amount of time. If you want to check your literature review for plagiarism or any of your documents, which is something you should be doing at this level anyway, there's quite a few websites that have got free plagiarism checkers, which you should really be running your stuff against. Anything above level 3, you should be doing your own plagiarism check. Scribbler has one and Grammarly has one. You can just go on their websites, just put in plagiarism checker, just go Scribbler's plagiarism checker or Grammarly's plagiarism. They're both free as far as I know, so you should be all right. I do check your stuff as well, okay? So when I'm marking, I am checking as well, just so as you know. Okay, step 3, identify, when you've gathered all this information together, identify themes, debates that have come up. Some of them, they might be, they might be mentioned in several pieces of research, and then it's quite an important theme or quite an important debate. Look for trends and patterns in maybe the way people, the method that people have used to do their research, or their results. What sort of patterns are you seeing? Certain approaches, will they become more or less used? Did they stop using something because it was unethical, but they did it 30 years ago? Very important. What questions keep recurring? What conflicts and contradictions keep coming up, or maybe that you feel might be quite significant? Okay. What are the pivotal publications? Are there any ones that you could see or that might have follow-up work that sort of changed the whole direction of the way we looked at things? That they are important to mention. Gaps, any gaps or weaknesses? Did they not really look at women in a certain area? Did they only look at middle class women but not working class women? Those sorts of things. Use that. And all this stuff will help you work out the structure of your literature review, really, and give you a way to focus it. As you can imagine, your literature review is going to take a fair bit of your word count. So when we go through the assignment, we'll have a little look at that. Step 4, outline your literature review structure. There's different ways of approaching it, and people usually tend to approach it in about 4 different ways. Okay, that you might show it chronologically, and that's often the easiest way to do things. but try not to oversimplify it, really. So you might go from the oldest piece of research to the most recent piece of research. Just be careful you don't just get into a way of listing it. And even if you have done it chronologically, still do a little bit of analysis about any patterns and any changes, big discussions, if direction has changed. So show an overview of what you've learned chronologically. Some people prefer to do it thematically. If they've got some recurring central themes, they don't really bother about when it was done. They might just pick up what these themes are. Like I said, it could be about policy, it could be about cultural attitudes, it could be economic access, there could be migrants. There are all sorts of different themes that you could find out that might be relevant to your question. Another way of approaching it is methodological. We talked about paradigms last week. You could talk about what results have emerged in qualitative research versus quantitative research. So where have you got lots of data? Has there been a lot in quantitative? Are the results different? Are they answering different questions? It could be sociological, historical, or cultural. What is the methods that have been used? Maybe they only look at one group of people. Maybe they only wanted to look at working class people all the way through. Maybe they think that working class people suffer from obesity more, and they've done that. Theoretical. So it can also be the foundation for a theoretical framework when you can discuss, coming out of it, you can discuss theories or key concepts. So you might say, if you take a certain theoretical approach, it will create a framework for your research, and that will help you go on to write your research. So the next step is just literally writing it. So you've got your loads of information. You think you've got enough. Okay. You've got a little bit you can say. You've almost done a little paragraph of analysis for each piece of research. You've got your citations and references jotted down somewhere. So like any other academic test, your literature review should have an introduction, a main body, a conclusion. Now, it's going to be part of your overall piece of research, but it's almost a separate part that can slot in different places. As I said, when we talk about the layout of the assignment, we'll talk about that in more detail. But just think that a literature review is almost an assignment or a document in its own right, really. And in that sense, it's got an introduction, which should clearly establish what the focus and purpose of it is. And it's got a body, which really, if it's going to be a long literature review, you can actually develop that into subsections. You could say methodological approach, chronological, or you might just, use one approach, and then you could just write it as a body. Summarizing and synthesis. Well, that's just when you're giving an overview of the point. When you're doing your analysis, don't just paraphrase other people. You can do that a couple of times, but really try to get your own interpretations in where possible, in your own words, in your own style, and discuss the significance of findings in relation to the literature as a whole. You must do some critical evaluation. You must talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your sources, or of the piece of research, or of the research approach, whatever you think. Write it in paragraphs, okay? Use topic sentences to draw connections. So in other words, you need to run it together like an essay, okay? Especially the body of it. It needs to read well, and you need to see the connections. Why have you separated the paragraph? I don't want to see too many headings, because that chunks it up too much, really. So try to flow, because you're working at a level 5 now. You should be able to flow from one paragraph to another, and show your connections. Are you doing comparisons? Are you doing contrasts? Think about your joining language, how you're bringing one paragraph related to another. Okay. Think about the structure of that body of it. It's quite important. You only need to use headings when you're writing a really long body of work. You shouldn't go into too many headings all the time because it makes your essay style quite disjointed. And after the body, you need a very clear conclusion. You need a summary of what you've already talked about. Okay, again, use your own words preferably. Summarize the key findings and why they're important. Okay, try to address any gaps. You can contribute to new knowledge, say that, more work needs to be done in this area, discuss how you've looked at existing theories, and that really will lead you into a framework for your research. To address this, I will approach, or needs to approach. Therefore, my research will cover some of these areas. Okay, very important tips. Please don't forget them. Don't forget to proofread, proofread, proofread. Okay. Check your language. Make sure your stuff is flowing nicely. Check your methodology. Make sure it's clear. Extra reading. I've handed in extra reading. I've got some nice background reading for you. Why do a literature review? Very useful for you. That is focused on health and social care. So you can pick up some ideas around it. Remember, if you do use it, cite it. And I've also put a nice outline template for you on into extra reading as well. So make use of it, okay? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The template is a pretty standard one that a lot of universities use. So there's no reason for you not to use it. You don't have to make one up. So please make use of that. Okay. Remember, any questions, any concerns, WhatsApp me and I'll discuss it with you then. Okay? Okay, well, that's it. So for this week, you can really start. Hopefully, you've been sort of thinking about, you've got your question already. You should have really got your question before you moved on to looking at this. Now you're going to have to start thinking about your literature review because you need to do the literature review before you actually create your other research, or you might start preparing your research, but you need to do your literature review at the same time. Okay. So there might be two pieces of work you're getting on with. Starting to do your research, writing your literature review, because it will take time. Okay. As I said, WhatsApp me if you have any questions, and I will see you next week. Thank you.